Okay. So, number one is actually set up for substitution, and I'll show you what that means. So it's already solved for one of the variables. So you're going to take the one variable answer and substitute it into the other equation. So if y equals -2, you're going to substitute it in for y. So you have 5x minus what you're substituting, put that in parentheses, equals -3. So a negative and a negative equals a what? Positive. So both those turn into positive. So when you solve for a variable, you isolate that variable. So we have to get rid of the other term. So are we going to add 2 to both sides or subtract 2 to both sides? Subtract. And so subtract 2. So 5x equals, what is -3 minus 2? When the signs are the same, you add and keep the sign.
-5.
-5. And then divide by 5. And as far as showing work, the last step is the only one that you can skip, because I would assume that you could look at that and be able to solve. -5 divided by 5 is -1. So your solution, don't forget to write your answer, is -1 comma -2 in parentheses. So what if you wanted to do this in a matrix? So this one's just kind of odd, so I'm just going to write the matrix for you, and that's what we learned yesterday. So on a matrix, you have a 2 by 3, and your first column is your x, second column is your y, and it has to equal your c for your matrix. So if you're going to write the matrix for this one, do we have an x on the first equation? No. So when we don't have anything, what's our number? 0. And then if there's not a number in front of y, the coefficient, what's your coefficient? There's not a number, the number is 1. Very good. And then c is -2. And then your second equation would be 5, -1, -3. That would be your matrix for that one. So again, you only need to get good at one of them for this year. Elimination and substitution will be taught again next and the next. So the next one we're going to do is one that is set up for elimination, and that is going to be number 7. So elimination is when you are able to add or subtract to be able to eliminate one of the variables. So to be able to add or subtract, the coefficients have to be the same and opposite. So on number 7, the y variables are the same but opposite. So what is 3x plus x? Plus, if you have 3 x's and you add another one, how many do you have? Now you got 4 x's. The older you get, the more x's you end up with. Unless you get married. 4x. And then -2 and -6 give you negative what? When the signs are the same, you add and keep the sign. -8. And so x equals, what is -8 divided by 4? -2. 2 times 4 is 8. And then you need to solve for y. So after you solve for x, you have to plug it back in, which is basically substitution, and solve for the other variable. So you can plug it into either equations. So I'm going to choose to plug it into the bottom because I don't have to multiply. So negative 2 minus 2y equals negative 6. Now what? What's the opposite of negative 2?
Positive 2.
Positive 2. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. And negative 2y equals negative 4. And then the opposite of multiplying times negative 2 is dividing. So negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. So your final answer would be negative 2, comma, positive 2. And if you write really large, you might want to show your work on a different sheet of paper. So number 5 is special, and we've got 2 different types. We're going to do number 5. So the second type that we're going to do on the right is when you have to subtract. So when you subtract, you change the signs of all of the numbers. It doesn't matter which, but you change the signs, because that means that their variables are the same but not opposite. So on number 5, if I choose to change the bottom equation, so I'll make this one minus, plus, and plus, and notice that I'm putting the change above it, because if you were doing more, which we will in the next one, you have 3 equations that you can choose from. You have the original equations and the changed equations that you can substitute the variables back in. But this one is special, and anybody tell me what happens to my x and y's? What is 5 minus 5? 0, yeah. And negative 3 plus 3 is? 0. So I end up eliminating all my variables. So I end up with 0 equals not 12 minus 9, which is 3. Does 0 equal 3? Yeah. So that is why it is no solution. And the reason why it's no solution, because the 2 lines are parallel. And you find out, if you solve them for y, that they would have the same slope. If you ended up with 0 equals 0, that would be true, and that would be infinite number of solutions. Okay, number 2. Number 2, like the one we just did, we're going to have to subtract. So, which equation do y'all want to change, the top one or the bottom one? Does it matter? It doesn't. It doesn't matter. I want to change the bottom one because I can make those 2 positive. So minus, plus, and plus. So x minus x makes that eliminate. 4y plus y. So if you have 4 and you add another one, you have 5y. 8 minus 3 is 5. And what does y must equal? 5 times what equals 5? 1, correct. So again, as far as substitution, you can substitute it in the top equation or the bottom 2 equations. I'm going to choose the top. So I have x plus y, which is 1, equals negative 3. And move it over. So, what does x equal? Opposite of adding 1 is subtracting. And x equals negative 4. So, my answer would be negative 4, comma 1. Okay, so what I haven't showed you or demonstrated is calculator. If you have your answer and you want to check it, you substitute those answers back in. So we obviously use the top equation, so I'm going to use the bottom original equation. So x is just x, so -4 minus 4 times my y value, which is 1. That better equal -8. If it doesn't, we did something wrong. So, and then of course, -4 plus 1 gives you -3. And you could substitute it into the changed equation. So you have negative, our x is -4, plus 4 times our y value, which is just 1. And again, that should equal a +8, because that was our changed equation. So when you're dealing with multiple choice, super easy, plug them back into the equations. It needs to work for both equations. It can't work for just one and not the other. Okay, last one that we're going to do is number 4. So number 4, can we add or subtract to get rid of a variable? Is 3 the same as 1? Or is 2 the same as 4? No. So not only do we need to subtract, we need to change one of the variables so that they're the same. So the opposite of +3 would be -3. So we can multiply the top equation by -3. Or what's the opposite of +4? -4. So 2 times what gives you -4? Thank you, sir. 2 times what gives you -4? -2. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So multiply the bottom times -2, only because 12 times 3 gives you 36. It's just a larger number. Totally doable though. So I'm going to rewrite my top equation. And then 3 times -2 is -6x. -2 times 2y is -4y. -2 times -4 is what? Negative times negative is a positive, and 2 times 4 is 8. So let me give you a minute. Add them together and solve for what? X or Y? X, because you're going to eliminate the Y. Okay, what is -6 plus 1? When there's not a coefficient, the coefficient is 1. So -6 plus 1 is -5. So -5x equals 12 plus 8 is 20. Divide by -5. And x equals what? Yep, -4. So if x equals -4, what does y equal? So you have 3 equations you can choose. I'm going to choose the top one, and my screen turned off. So I have -4 plus 4y equals 12. So I substituted -4 in for x. Again, isolate the variable, so I need to get rid of the -4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So 4y equals, what's 12 plus 4?
16.
Divide by 4, and y equals 4. Is that the only way I could have done that? So my final answer is -4 and 4. So 3 times -4 is -12. 2 times 4 is 8. -12 plus 8 does equal -4. Okay, so choices today. So your choices for y'all, you can either finish this, check it before you turn it in, and I'll be grading for accuracy and for work, or complete 10 points. And for those that are absent in honors, for honors, you are to complete this plus 10 points, or complete your 20 points.